So what you see now that I have here is the new chassis we're going to be using. The Traxxas Rustler upper chassis plate. You'll notice I've got a portion of it cut out. I already have my servo mounted and the servo linkage. That's why in the other truck or other chassis, the Traxxas servo did not have the linkage attached. I had already removed it. And of course I have my front end, which we just took off of the stock Traxxas Slash chassis. Now, I have this servo in here because it was something I already had laying around, the high-tech 5625 Metal Gear servo. So I decided to use this, but the Traxxas servo works very well. I also had this Kimbrough heavy-duty servo saver as well in my parts box, so I decided to use that as well. But because this is a much longer arm, I had to Dremel out this portion to allow clearance for the servo to work. Basically, this was a symmetrical part. This end here was identical to here. I just had to cut this part out. So now we're going to be installing the front end along with this upper chassis plate to our extended Rustler chassis. What we have to do first, you'll notice that, whoops, I lost a screw there. You'll notice that this part here has two posts, similar to the original from the other chassis, these two posts. So the first thing I'm going to do, remember I mentioned the two washers that I left here on the original part. I'm going to put those to use. I'm going to take them off of here and put them on the posts here. So that's step number one. Be careful not to turn this over and have them slide off. Step number two, we're going to take our steering assembly, the bell crank, and slip these posts through from the top. So now this is what we have so far. The next step, I'll just take those screws out. The next step will be to take those longer screws with the washers already installed that we removed earlier, and we're going to fasten our bell crank there we go. The next step is going to involve mounting this upper plate with my servo already installed to the front part of the chassis. Now, the servo, just like the stock Traxxas servo, will be mounted with these flathead 2.5mm hex head screws. So I've already done that. And what we're going to do, you see the screw heads sticking out from the bell crank. Those two, which are protruding here, will fit into these holes. So we have to line up those screw heads into those two holes. What I've also done is I drilled a relief in the chassis here for my servo wire to exit, so it's not pinched. So now I've managed to place the steering bell cranks in their proper position. And what I'm going to do next, just to temporarily hold this upper chassis plate, is install these two 2mm screws. So I'll be using these screws that are about 10mm long. They have a beveled head on them to fit into this beveled opening, so they'll sit flush until I've got everything fit into place, and then I'll tighten everything down. Now you'll also remember I had these two 2.5mm head hex screws from the disassembly, and I put them back in their respective holes, and I'm going to use them also to fasten down this rustler top plate to my new chassis, or to the front end here I should say. So we'll take care of that. Now, what I have to do is attach my steering linkage, which is right here, which has been screwed to the Kimbrough heavy-duty servo saver, and screw that to my steering bell crank. So I'll take care of that next. Since everything looks good, I'm going to begin by tightening everything up, all the screws I had left loose before. And that concludes the installation of the front end to our new LCG chassis. Okay, so why don't we begin installing the rear portion of our truck, the transmission, the suspension, the rear shock tower. You recall from the previous steps that I left all the screws in place, so it'll be easier to find and I'd remember which screw goes where. So I'm going to begin by fastening down the rear shock tower to the chassis. Set this down and you'll see that there's a piece of plastic right there, and it's even harder to see over here, but basically I had to take this rear portion of the truck and slide it forward and down to get it past these plastic pieces. So what I'm going to do is insert the screws here. Then I'm going to tighten down these two screws. Then we can flip that over and install these. Then I'm going to attach my rear bumper. And there's our completed LCG chassis. Same wheelbase as the Slash, but we have a low center of gravity now. Okay, so I have just a couple of tips for you. This right here, which you've seen earlier in the video, is my antenna tube. All I did was drill 2 holes on either side of this aluminum L channel, put a small zip tie through it, and zip tie my antenna tube. And what I do, I don't put the antenna through here, I wrap it around. I have a 2.4 gigahertz antenna, so it's short. I just wrap it around there and put a zip tie and fasten it to the antenna tube. Now the other tip I have, my battery straps. Remember I discussed cutting some slits with your Dremel and cutoff wheel in your chassis and L channel. So here I have one strap already installed. This is a velcro strap. It's about 9 inches long. I'm going to install the other one just to show you what I do. Push it through on one end of the chassis and through the chassis and the L channel on the other side. And I'm taking my battery here. I don't have my speed control. Like I said, normally I put it back here. But it's very simple to strap your battery in. That's one. And here's the second strap. Now, the other thing you can do if you are trying to find a spot for your receiver is take something, put it on top of your battery. This here is a piece of corrugated plastic, and I strap this to the battery as well, and then I just use double-sided tape and stick my receiver right on top. So by cutting these slits in various areas of your L channel and chassis, you can secure the battery in several areas. You can have it all the way up front, you can have it in the middle, you can have it all the way back. That is entirely up to you. So this gives you plenty of flexibility to do that. And I hope you learned some valuable tips in this tutorial, and hopefully you will find this homemade LCG chassis slash will be a big performance improvement for your slash at a minimal cost. Thanks for watching.